That's smooth. Yeah.
Sup, everybody? Sup, Rebecca and Carrie?
Sup, everyone? Welcome to another fun episode of SUP. I think I'm still floating from last week's episode, Matthew. What about you?
Yeah, wonderful. Of course, every episode is amazing, but that's one of the great things about doing SUP is we get to meet so many awesome gems, hear so many amazing stories and situations. We just can't get enough. I think this is a big thing now, that eat it up. You see a lot of NFL players do that when they get a touchdown. I'm all about it. Let's just keep eating up those awesome gems.
It's convenient how you brought up NFL. Let's go ahead and say why you brought up the NFL, because your beloved Chiefs. Yeah. Okay. Yes. You just had to get that in there, didn't you?
I didn't yell it. I did say it, but I didn't yell it.
Congratulations. They're doing good.
Team full of superstars. Yeah, a little nervous about Mahomes, but we still have a lot of superstars. And really speaking of superstars, Rebecca, I think we got some superstars on with us today.
Absolutely. And I have been asking week after week, people recommend those PAC certified folks, because this is how we learned about Helen and Kailee today. We learned about these gems from Beth Nolan. So Helen, Kailee, come on up. Welcome to SUP.
Sup, ladies.
Hey. Thanks for having us.
So before we get started on your connection with Beth, why don't you tell our listeners, our viewers, a little bit about yourselves, your organization, and some of the great work you're doing.
All right, well, I'll start. I'm Helen Mulder. I am an occupational therapist. I've been working as an occupational therapist, mostly working with older adults since, 2015. So I work for Spectrum Health. It's the biggest hospital system in the West Michigan area. Specifically, I work in home care with the Visiting Nurse Association. So most of the time I'm going out to see folks in their homes, mostly older adults. And I do most of that in the greater Grand Rapids area is my territory. So that's what I do.
Awesome. Thanks for being here, Helen. And how about you, Kailee?
Yeah, so much like Helen, I'm also an occupational therapist. I also work for Spectrum Health in the Visiting Nurses Association. I cover the Lake Michigan Lakeshore, primarily the Muskegon area. I have to give a shout out. It's about 40 miles, 40 miles west of Grand Rapids, and I've been practicing as an OT since 2013, and my whole career has been with geriatric and older adult population.
Well, welcome to SUP, Straight Up Positive. And we invited you on because you guys are straight up positive. What you are doing is positive and definitely making a difference in your area. So let me ask you this. How did you first learn about PAC? I love hearing those first, I saw Teepa and drank the Kool-Aid and then stories. Do you have a story like that, ladies?
I'm sure our stories are a little bit different. I recall briefly learning about Teepa and GEMS in college. There's so much focus on theory, and probably most closely related was learning about Allen, the Allen cognitive levels. And I think we were talking, I think it was in 2019, we were approached by, some of our supervisors and our employer to attend a PAC course that was being put on to other members in our organization. And I believe it was Catherine Quinlan that was teaching it or putting it on. And, we both went to the course and loved it. And then we're vocal about, how much we enjoyed it and how much we thought it would benefit our organization. And then in turn, we're sent by our, awesome leadership team, and along with a geri psychologist from our organization and a nurse practitioner to be certified as trainers. And that was in April. So of 2019. So, I mean, the rest is history after that.
That's awesome. So just real quick, before Helen tells her when I first heard Teepa or PAC's story, I love that. But what I love most about this, your story together, is that this was really leadership driven. Your leadership completely got behind this. And so hopefully you told them to watch tonight, and hopefully they're hearing that kudos. And if so, and they're watching on YouTube or Facebook, maybe write a little message to Helen and Kailee to let them know you're here supporting them. So yeah, that's so cool. That leadership support is so, so important. So Helen, what about you? Because I think you had a lot going on when you got your first certification, right?
I did have a little bit going on. So, you know, similar to Kailee, I learned a lot about dementia and theory and things in occupational therapy school, and specifically the Allen cognitive levels, which we know is related to PAC. And so I think my employer knew that I was kind of I guess a nerd for that kind of stuff. And so when our supervisor, our manager Josh, asked us, you know, would you like to do this? Would you like to go to this course? I looked up Teepa, and I think I went down the YouTube rabbit hole, and just I thought, this is it. This is the piece that I've been looking for. This is what's going to take all this stuff that we learned out of a book and let me actually use it in a way that's going to be so helpful and practical for our folks. So I think I watched every YouTube video that was on the channel at the time, and probably found some other ones not on Teepa's channel that was just of Teepa from elsewhere. So by the time we got to the course, I was all in. I was ready to go. So yeah.
So I love that you're saying you were like nerded up, because that is a phrase that I use a lot. Just like, I am such a nerd for certain things, and you were doing your homework, you were trying to make this theory and this what you had learned in the classroom actually come to life. And that's one of the things that's so cool about Teepa, is really bringing this practice, bringing dementia care to a very practical and real level, right? And so that's so cool that you were able to make that transition. And so then you got certified. You both got certified as trainers.
Correct.
So tell us a little bit about what skills and knowledge you were able to implement that you gained at that certification course. Thinking about our audience is really a very general audience. It could be someone that's certified, or it could be someone that's not. So thinking about someone who's never been to a certification course from PAC, what would you like to tell them about the course and what you learned there?
Well, you know, just on a basic level, if you have, you know, Kailee and I, we work professionally with people living with dementia. So we came at it, of course, from that angle. How can we do this professionally? But even just as even just as someone who has family or friends or just people in your community that may be living with dementia, to go from having dementia be this question mark of what is this and what does this really mean and what's going to happen and why are people acting the way that they are, to go from that almost just feeling of nervousness and uncertainty to getting some ideas about, well, we have some ideas of why things are happening, and we actually can predict a little bit what might be happening in the future. And we do have some things that you can try that can make life a little easier, a little more enjoyable. And if that relates to your situation at all, a PAC course is perfect for you. And if the only thing you want to do is just to be able to spend more quality time with people in your family, that would be enough of a reason. But if you are a professional and you want to do some things where you are enhancing what you're doing, it's great for that too. It kind of goes up and down the levels. You can go as deep with it as you want. So just a fantastic opportunity.
Yeah, and I love that you mentioned for family members as well. And I'll share, just to give you all a little bit of a sneak peek to our viewers, we have a real gem coming on in the next few weeks. To a lot of folks that we have on are professionals, and sometimes we're professionals who also have family experience. But this person truly just came to a certification course strictly to be a better care provider for her mother. And so watch for that one. It's going to be a tearjerker. Get your tissues ready. It's going to be really good. And so thanks for mentioning that. It's not just for professionals, but it can really make a difference in our care for family members as well. What about you, Kailee? What did you take away from the course?
Oh my gosh, where did I even start? I think kind of piggybacking off of what Helen said, you know, it really just changed the way that I approach, you know, not just patients living with dementia, but every patient, in working in my practice, you know, because it's, I don't know, the skills that I learned are they're so applicable to anybody. I mean, and it has changed the way that I look at things and do things. I think more than I ever anticipated, and it's been so beneficial to not only see the change like in the way that Helen and I approach things, but through training, you know, our staff members, how it's changed the way they approach and think about things too.
Yeah, so you changed not only your own practice, but also you took that training back and shared it with your staff. And last year was a very busy year. Despite COVID, you did a lot of training, right? Tell us about that.
Yeah, we did.
Helen? I'll jump in on this one.
Go for it, please.
So we went through so many changes with our training. Oh my word. Because we started, you know, we started with just some small groups, and Kailee and I did training together, and it went really well. And then we started doing some things on our own with our, you know, in our different locations, and that was going really well too. And then the C word, COVID, starts coming up. So we had to really change how we did things. Started with much smaller groups, and then we moved to, you know, masks and opening the windows. And eventually it turned into, we ended up changing to doing things virtually for our last few. So we had sort of the entire spectrum. We started with a pretty traditional large group and changed it, and then changed it again, and then changed it again. And but I have to say, you know, through it all, we were able to train between the two of us in the last year and a half, around 200 people, which is about nearly 100% of our patient-facing staff members. So I didn't realize it was that many people until I, you know, asked somebody today how many people we have working for us. And I have to give a shout out to our nurse educator, Angelica, who helped us coordinate all that, because we wouldn't have been able to do all that scheduling and coordination without her.
No way.
Yeah, 200 people. So even through COVID, we were able to do that. And I just am so grateful that we had the resources to manage that.
You two are amazing, because I mean, for a lot of folks, that COVID just kind of put everything on pause. And yet dementia didn't get put on pause, right? And your care for patients didn't get put on pause. And so you found a way. You started small, you grew it over time, and that leadership support that kept you going throughout it is so vital. And so now you can say nearly 100%, 100. I mean, whatever, if you are in that ballpark, you are a rock star. You guys are rock stars. That's amazing. So every single person that interfaces with your patients has been exposed to PAC training.
Yeah, I would say in some facet, yeah.
Wow. And so you've noticed a difference in your own practice. And a lot of times on SUP, we talk about those differences pre-PAC and post-PAC. And so I'd like to ask you both, for yourself, as well as for your team, what are some of the changes that you've noticed pre-PAC and post-PAC?
I kind of already touched on this a little bit, but I think for me, just a significant amount of more confidence in working with this population. You know, you're only taught so much in school, and then you're out in the real world and you're trying to learn and you know, and grow as a practitioner. And I just feel like this gave me so many tools that I can use when I'm working with this population, that it's not, you know, obviously it's still trial and error, but it's not so much more, it's not so much trial and error anymore. And then I've noticed too within our organization, you know, we're not treating dementia as something that, oh, they have it, you know, there's nothing we can do about it. We're just going to leave it, you know. You know, nurses that are admitting patients with dementia will right away say, hey, the family, you know, I started talking to them about PAC. You know, they definitely benefit from more education. Address it when you go, you know what I mean? So everybody's starting to think that way, and, you know, not just looking at dementia as a diagnosis, but something that we can, you know, treat and work with. So
And Helen, I think you shared some stories with me
Helen's
about
got some great stories.
About people no longer saying we need a discharge because
yes.
this person.
I'll share my favorite story, and this is what made me a true believer, because this was really early on in my PAC journey, and this was before I really, I guess when you talk about before and after, this is like my real world before and after moment. I had just gone through the first PAC course that we did, and I had been sharing a little bit of this information with some of our other staff. So we had a gentleman, a patient, and a physical therapist and I were working with him, and he was probably a pretty solid Ruby most of the time. And he had fallen and had a hip fracture. Previous to his fall, he was walking, doing pretty good, getting around. But after his hip fracture, he had some pain and some weakness, and he was not able to walk. He was using a wheelchair, and he needed to be in a mechanical lift to get from place to place. So the PT had worked with him a little bit, but told me he can't follow any directions, and we're trying to do exercise and we're trying to do this, but it's not working. I think we need to discharge this person because we're not going to get anywhere with him. And I said, let's just come with me for one visit. Let's just, you and I go together, and we're going to try something. Just go with it. Just see if this works. We got to try it. And hand under hand, you know, positive action starters, positive personal connectors, using the visual cues, using the physical cues. It worked. We got him to participate with us. We were able to communicate, and we were able to have him have a meaningful participation with what we were doing. And it took time. We went to see this gentleman for some weeks, but by the end of it, he was able to walk again, and he didn't need that mechanical lift anymore. And we were able to show the staff at the facility that he lived in how to do these things. And then they were able to show us that they could do it too. And that was enough for me.
I mean, that is a huge difference in that man's life. Can you even imagine what his life would have been like after, just if he was discharged? And we know that happens, and it doesn't have to. So wow, Helen, you got to know that made a real difference in his life and the staff, and his family.
Yep.
Wow. And so you also talked with me about language, just really the language that we use. And I think Beth Nolan is the person that introduced me to this expression, PAClish, because we kind of have our own PAC language. But you said that your language, even the way you talk about dementia, the way that you educate families, the way that you provide that support and education and skills, it's just very different. So can you tell us about that?
The PAC list is real. It's so
Yes.
real. I remember when I finally clued into it, like, wait a minute, you guys are doing that on purpose.
Mhm.
Hold on. I see there's a pattern here. So it's real, and you all are wonderful that you do it. I try. My PAC list is, we're working on it. But you know, the way that you talk and the way that you communicate with people does change how people view what you're saying and how they feel about what you're saying. And, you know, having the opportunity to share that with people here, try this and tell me how it goes. Maybe try giving some more time. Maybe try just giving 2 choices, and giving people the opportunity to try some simple things like that you can, you know, anybody can do that. And it's not a complicated thing. It doesn't have to be something you have to memorize exactly down to the word. It's the idea behind it. And even it doesn't, not every person is going to need every different thing. You don't have to throw the book at everybody. Sometimes it's just the one thing. You can give somebody one just change that can make a big difference. So those are just some really nice tools to offer to people that maybe seem like common sense, but not common.
And the thing is, as staff, they want to do well, right? People want to provide good care. And, you know, I always say when we know better, we do better. And Teepa corrects me and says, when we know better, we can choose to do better, you know, and I think that's so true. But when we don't have the skills and the knowledge, we're doing the best we can. It's not like any of us set out to cause harm or not have hope in someone's abilities. But when we don't understand how to go about it, we don't make the best decisions. So, Kailee, anything you want to add on that whole thing that has changed in your practice or staff?
Oh, I'm stealing all my thunder. No, I mean, we work, you know, we work with a great organization too that has just, I don't know, believed in us and wanted to change along with us. So, you know, it's been a whole system thing too, which has been awesome.
And one of the things, you're exactly right. It's this whole system, and you guys have led the drive. But it took the leadership. It took people's willingness to try something new. And you know, Teepa often talks about there's levels. There's the early adopters. That's probably about 25% of our staff when we try to do culture change, and then about 50% is kind of, Beth could probably correct me. I'm throwing out numbers here, but it's those people that kind of adopt over time. And then there are those tough nuts to crack. And that's maybe not a very PAC way of describing it, but it's folks who, I've been doing this for 150 years and I'm set in my ways and I don't want to try this stuff. Look at me, how this stuff. I'm not going to try this stuff. But those times when you guys are a year and a half into it. And so people that are maybe at the very beginning of this journey and they're feeling like this is going to take forever, and those tough nuts or those people that aren't going to ever change are just never going to come around, what advice do you have for people that are maybe a year and a half behind the process where you are?
I think, you know, when you're just starting out, all you can do is get the ball rolling.
Yeah.
Because you're not going to get everybody to do everything exactly how you think they're going to do it, you know, on the get-go. I think when we started this, we knew this wasn't going to be something we were going to finish in a year. Mm-hmm. We know that we're going to be working on this for a long time, and that's okay. We're ready for that. We got into this knowing that. And then, you know, just offering people the resources and being available to them. I've had people who seem a little, I don't know about this right away. And then a few months later, I get an email or I get a phone call about, hey, I got this one person, maybe you could give me some advice. And then we can talk about it and we can go back to, well, let's think back to, do you remember this from the class? And, oh yeah, okay, I do. And let's give it a try. So, yeah, I'd say, be available, be ready to be there for a while. Don't stop. We're not stopped. We've had our, we've done our main training, but we're going to keep doing trainings for our new employees, and we're working on some things behind the scenes to help make, we want to make doing things easier for people. We don't want people to have to work really hard to do these things. We want them to have resources at their fingertips. We want them to have really easy ways that they can, do their work efficiently, quickly, better. So we're working on some of that stuff behind the scenes too. So more to come on that.
Nice. And you both mentioned the Allen cognitive levels, and I know that a tool that you've used, a PAC tool that you've used, is the GEMS app. So can you tell us about how you've used that? And then we have Beth that's going to come on and give us a little tutorial for those of us that haven't, or those people who haven't seen the GEMS app in person. But how have you used that as occupational therapist? How have you found that app to be useful?
Oh, especially for what Helen and I do in home health. We're so reliant on technology, and having a computer and a phone right at our fingertips is, it's how we do our job. It makes our job easier. We're constantly on the go. I can't speak for Helen, but I'm never in the office. I mean, my couch is my office. So we don't have access to a lot of, other things. So having something, right on our phone, that I know, ta-da, not only that, we can refer to ourselves, but we can share with coworkers or share, with families who are, engaged in technology, is just, it's been really beneficial. And as we know, people learn in different ways. So, some people like technology more than just a sheet of paper, or again, it's right at your fingertips. You're not as inclined to lose your phone as you are a piece of paper. So
exactly. Nice mention of that learning styles, Kailee, that idea that we all learn in different ways. And goodness, for you guys, if your office is your couch, or many folks say my office is my car, but guess what we always have with us, right? We have this device. And so the PAC team said, well, let's put this information right here where people are going to have access to it. So Beth Nolan, can you come on and tell us, well, maybe Helen has anything to add there, Helen, on how you've used the GEMS app?
Well, I agree with Kailee, and I just, people who come through our course, our learners are always asking for resources. Give me things that I can hold in my hands and look at later. And, those visual people who want to see it again, and, people who like to read about things again, they're so excited to get something tangible after everything that they've gone through that. But I think this is even better than any handout that I could give. It's got so much information. It's got videos. It's just great. So, and it's free. It's free.
You just took what I was going to say. I was going to say, Beth, how much does this whole GEMS app cost? So welcome to SUP, Beth, again. Thank you for coming back.
Thanks for having me.
So she mentioned it was free?
Yes, it is free. I want to make sure you guys can hear me okay, since I'm talking through my phone, as I'm going to be showing the GEMS app on my phone. So yeah, the GEMS app, there was a part of me that I'm always so different in my head. I'm so diamond in my head. And then hopefully how I come off is more sapphire. But I was thinking, yeah, okay, fine. I can have the GEMS information available on my phone. and maybe I'm showing my age by not necessarily immediately seeing the benefit of having things when I could get some of the stuff on our website. I mean, I can get these videos on our website. I can look up the GEMS poster on our website, and all of our certified community, you can pull that stuff. You can even go into the back end, your certified community website, and find all this stuff. But you guys are right. It is set up a little bit more, it's set up differently. And there's a difference between that format that we have when we look at something on our computers versus when we're looking at something on our phone. And I think that's really the difference of that utility, that making it scaled appropriately. It's the technical side of this, not that the GEMS app necessarily introduces a whole other level of information that you guys didn't already have. So I thought I would share with that, if that is helpful, MMC.
Yeah, and
as
that,
I
and
pull this up.
just like you're mentioning, that ability to share. I mean, how many times have we had those phone conversations with folks? And just like Helen and Kailee were mentioning, families who aren't quite understanding what's going on. It's that big question mark of why are we seeing this? What's happening here? I mean, what is this dementia thing? And if they're able to access the app to be able to say, ooh, you know what? There is this really great resource. And if you take a look at this, it can really give you a lot of great explanation, because as Beth's going to show us, there are so many different ways that it presents about each one of the GEM states. And there's videos and there's words and there's pictures. And I mean, it's awesome. So that sharing piece is so important, and the accessibility and how easy it is to connect people to that, especially when it's over the phone and you're trying to help them in the moment. And with COVID, I mean, how many times do you guys see families? How many times do you actually get to see them in person now? How many times do you get to have those family care meetings in person? I know we haven't had them for a long time. It's all by phone. And so having easily accessible materials to give out, like the GEMS app, is such a great resource. So show us what you got, Beth.
Yeah, so speaking of sharing, I will share my screen on my phone. So you're seeing my lovely family there. And as you can see on my phone, boy, my kid's older than this picture. I need to update that, I think. There is our cute little GEMS app. So when I click it, it opens up automatically to our homepage that just has the GEMS themselves sort of laid out. Like, what are they? And each piece on here is clickable. So we tried to make it, maybe being a 50-year-old person helping the team develop the app wasn't the worst thing in the world, because I was like, well, can I click that? There was a little bit, I was realizing there might have been a benefit to that age that I sort of straddle between, I got all the tech, and wow, some of my partners that are 7, 8, 10 years older than maybe not everyone, of course. So I'm curious, ladies, as my phone shuts off, I can tell when I have spoken too long. So when you're looking at this app, I was curious, when you bring this up to families, what is sort of the first place do you go? Because that's a lot of GEMS to look at initially. So I'm wondering if you guys could walk us through it sort of functionally. If, let's say, Matthew and I were like, adults, children, brother and sister with a parent. So what might be something you guys do with this, knowing that it comes to this page?
Well, I like to start just with the about. Like, what is this? What are we talking about in the first place? So I like that it has a what is this button right up at the top.
So that one right there, just sort of jumping into the overview on what exactly is the GEM state model? What are we talking about? So that for you kind of gives them the big picture if they're big picture people. But there's also a piece here showing Teepa.
When she does have sound, she does talk. You do hear her when she's talking. Unfortunately, I think the sound is missing, but yes, and that's that video we were talking about, right, Beth? Each piece almost has a video that really goes with it. So tell us more about how that plays out.
Yeah, so a lot of people use these videos this one in particular is actually a resource on our website. And it really does talk about this idea that we're reframing the functionality. So the GEM state model, as you guys had mentioned, is based on the Allen Cognitive measures, Allen Cognitive's tool that actually incorporates functionality. How can a person do X given where they are in other brain states? So with the GEMS model, it takes it one step further. Not only is there a little bit of changes, it looks at specifically the function of different parts of the brain and how they manifest as different changes happen or different states are achieved, whether it's dementia or stress. But I think a big key here when it comes to the GEM state model is this idea that it takes this concept of I've only got to do with what I have. And it doesn't necessarily frame dementia where we hear it everywhere else is loss, 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 loss. So picture this, if you will, with the GEM state model is think of like your favorite traditional donut, the ones with the hole in the middle, right? So you got, is it a cake donut? Is it a chocolate donut? Are you kind of that, are you more of the purist? You want the glaze? What is your favorite donut? Okay, so everybody got that in their head. Now, what if I told you well, Matthew, go ahead and describe for me your favorite donut and convince me it's the best one I could possibly eat, but the only thing you're allowed to talk about is the hole.
Whoa. Surrounded by sugary goodness.
So automatically you're stuck having to talk about what's outside the hole. And it's not just our dementia training that talks about what is lost, but also then what is retained. Because how different is the donut Matthew was trying to describe versus, let's say, a jelly-filled donut? They are very different beasts, but we do have a whole that is part of what it is. There are some things that are lost in this disease process. So the GEMS model doesn't ignore that. But if I'm supposed to come here and be with you, connect with you, and support you, I got to figure out what it is you have retained. I got to know truly what is in that surrounding beauty that makes it so worth being with you. And then also getting my stuff done, enjoying my time with you. So that GEMS model, that overview video on that first page is a big part of it. So Helen, when you guys are looking at the GEMS app, what is the next place that you go to?
Well, if I'm working with a family, I'm probably at this point, hopefully would have already had a discussion about where in general their loved one may fall. And
Okay.
in the States, so I would probably try to direct them to a more specific GEM so that they're not, because there's a lot of information. If you're trying to go through all the GEMs at once, you might get a little overwhelmed. So trying to direct them towards maybe one or two that match their loved one the most.
Okay, so it's just that aspect of being curious, starting with, well, let's take a look at this GEM. So I just hit the amber GEM, and you can see it sort of pop up there. And then on that screen, you're left with sort of an overview. And this isn't full sentences up here. So my guess is there's something that happens for both you and Kailee when you're talking with families, where you take these single phrases, these single words up at the top and sort of begin to have a discussion to explore the possibility. Are they seeing what you're seeing in terms of GEM state? Or do you go somewhere else? So in other words, do you talk about the stuff up at the top that looks like the computer lines that are going towards the GEM? Or do you go straight for the video, or maybe would start to break it down into what abilities do I observe?
I will often go to the what do I observe? That seems to really break it down for folks in terms of really concrete examples of things that they can recognize. They can say, oh yeah, they do have more strength and skill, or they do repeat words a lot. And so they can sometimes see phrases or things that match what their experience has been. And then that's great. And then if it doesn't really fit, we can try something else.
So then you can flip over and hit the gem at the bottom of the screen. Well, let's compare it to this one. Maybe it's actually, I'm seeing a little bit more skill in that. And when they're looking at things that the average person, not someone who's trained as a OT or a physical therapist or a nursing profession, I can, without a lot of medical training, I can know how many words someone uses. That I can see, or I can see maybe if I'm more of a kinesthetic observer, I can know what body skills or dexterity you can do. And that's something that we, as then partners in this journey with them, can sort of demonstrate. Is it when they pick up a utensil, is it this, or are they still kind of holding their utensil this way? That sort of way that we can sort of start to demonstrate and bring to life these few words that are written here, it sounds like. Nice. There's one other side to this, isn't there? So whether you're on the main page and you go in and look at a gem itself and have the video showing Teepa describing that particular gem, for every single one of these, there is then not only after what is I observe, but then now what I know what I'm looking at, what might I be able to try? So how has this helped you guys? Because in home health, a lot of times from what I understand, the reality of OT is that you get a limited time there. Everything's a lot of times based on time for billing purposes. How do you then impart this knowledge and then a little bit of skill building before you then have to go to your next place? How does something like this help for you all?
Well, oh, go ahead, Kailee.
Oh, it's okay. You're fine. We do have, limited time. And I really like this for the simplicity of it. Because, since we started doing this, I've learned that the more simple you keep it, the more likely they are to retain it and, carry it over. So for me, I've liked the simplicity, and maybe just picking one or two things from this list to focus on, on any given session. That way you're not bombarding them, with too many. Say, hey, just focus on, attending to their vision and responding to their language, this time, or over the next week or until we come back and see you. That way, you're not bombarding them and it's something short, to the point, and concrete that they can kind of take and utilize.
Nice. So this concept, the same thing we use in PAC, that at best, when I'm learning a new skill, I can only really focus on one or maybe two things at any given time. And we sort of help people sort of narrow down that idea. So that concept that I may be able to have you and empower you to pick one of these things so that it becomes something that so let's take a look at these two, that sort of consulting model we use that help people make choices with positive action starters, but they're the ones that are actually making those choices. The other piece here too, it sounds like as well, is, and I clicked those little blue letters because we actually did add a hand under hand page. So any trainer, or actually anybody who's gone through our search, will probably recognize this wonderful lady as they watched the 7 hours of pre-work, and then, or as a trainer, lived it every single day since they've been a trainer, as every time they train. There's a wonderful piece where Teepa in that video starts to break down how it is and what exactly is the utility of a hand under hand approach. And even with this woman who, because she's standing up on a stage in front of 300 people at that moment, maybe 400 people, given that, and Teepa's messing with her, chances are she's at best functionally at diamond, if not emerald moments. So I understand what you're saying. I have language, but there's some changes going on. And she really demonstrates the utility of hand under hand. So it gives families, I'm hoping, like a basic overview, but then can facilitate the conversation for you guys, but then leaving them with the tool of how it is they get in to hand under hand so they can start to use it with some real broken down pictures, which obviously at this level is really helpful. Let's say somebody with Ruby, if they're no longer independently helping themselves eat, but they do require assistance. And yet, even though this one is showing at the very top, hand under hand with someone with a lot of skills, this woman has a lot of skills, but at that moment, seeing how much it feels differently to do with rather than to someone. That's really cool. So just a couple other pieces on here. Is there anything else that you guys wanted to mention about the app?
I was noticing something.
Yeah.
And I love this part of it, because sometimes you hear but 1 minute mom's like on the go and she's always down the hall and going and going and going and going and going. And then the next minute, it's like suddenly she's locked in on something and we just can't get her away from it. And she's just stuck. And it seems like, well, why is that? I mean, isn't she just supposed to be one of these levels, or how does that work? And so if you notice the coloring on each one of those blocks, it's not just a total sapphire color or a total diamond color or a total emerald. You notice the color changes kind of happening there. So why did they do that, Beth? Why did PAC come up with this color change there in between? What are they trying to say there? I'm curious.
Well, my visual friend, I love that, because I too am quite visual. And for those of you who are not very visual people, it may be the first time you're going, oh, look at that. Didn't really matter to you, but it really does visually give this idea you're talking about. The GEMS state model is not about a state you achieve. It's not a level you get to. So there's not levels of dementia. And every other assessment tool out there, you get down to, and you have the losses to get you at this particular level of functioning. And if I've ever talked with family members or professionals, the one thing that everyone talks about is good days and bad days. And I love how that phrase is amusingly always attributed to people living with dementia. And I laugh and realize, there is no us versus them, because I have good days and bad days too. I am in a certain state of functioning at any given moment, but I'm never at a level that one would hope that after I had a good night's sleep or maybe a good meal or had a chance to cool off, that maybe I would be at a different ability to see someone's other point of view. And this idea that we can visually show that, and it's so prominent, I think, in amber, how it shows this idea that I may in general be functioning at about an amber state, but I have moments of emerald and I have moments of ruby. And not even getting into the fact that, let's say when you enter into emerald, or when you look at, diamond, you have, just like at the top there, showing diamond and sapphire and, oops, time to take the trash out, and and emerald moments, that in truth, there's always this possibility that when I look at what abilities do I observe, for every single gem, it depends actually, and maybe this is our next tool, what state I'm able to function in based on all of these levels of areas of functioning. So for example, we have all met that amazing person who is living with vascular dementia, but has had a series of strokes and they have zero expressive language, and yet they're helping you get themselves dressed. So when someone in just general garden variety Alzheimer's disease no longer has any expressive language, their expressive sounds are there, but that's about it. But you would also then expect them to be at about the same-ish state across all of their abilities. But when we start to get into all these different stressors in our lives, or our pre-existing skills, if I was a writer for a living and a public speaker for a living, how much language am I going to come into dementia with? So much more. If I'm an engineer, or maybe I was an athlete, one would guess that I may be at a very different level for my dementia, but my body skills are amazing. So I may actually be an emerald in body skills and a ruby in everything else in my dementia. So the next sort of move we're looking at these at this point, talking with families, and the utility of this app is, I really am looking at a particular gem state at any given time. One day we hope that each one of these will be able to slide back and forth, and maybe we could get in there. Vision is, diamond, but yet I've got emerald language, and my receptive skills due to this particular head injury are this. And can you imagine constructing maybe a portfolio at any given time for any given purpose, every given person at that moment? So we've got ideas and where we want to go with it. The only other piece I did want to mention on here is back at the homepage. Sorry, I'm kind of popping around here pretty fast. If people are curious, what the heck is Teepa Snow and what is positive approach? Like I said, every single one of these little buttons is clickable. And so hopefully people are able to see other ones. But the last thing is sort of this dementia scale comparison. So hopefully, as you know, Helen and Kailee have talked about this incredibly supportive environment. I really hope that it goes beyond talking with families, but yet we can also start to use this GEMS state model as a way to communicate with other providers who may actually be speaking a different language. So we have the ALAN by compared to the GEMS. We have the FAST. We have, you know, the GDS. And in truth, we're hoping to gather a couple more and maybe add them to the app, or at least have them as resources for folks that they can download. Because we've got so many professions that are coming together as a team to provide that just right support for every person on your staff, every person living with dementia, and every family member you guys encounter. And it's really going to take an entire team. And if we're not speaking everyone else's language, we're not supporting them in their hopeful migration to what we believe is a much more functional assessment tool.
Yes, amen to that. And I love, again, just the being the visual person that I am. And I think sometimes, especially when you're dealing with technology, for instance, or phones, that visual piece is pretty darn important, right? I mean, without the visual piece, you're just pushing around on the screen, hoping something's going to happen. And all of those cues that it helps to give somebody looking at it, and how vivid they are, and being maybe somebody on the other side of the phone or a Zoom call, using those to be able to guide somebody through who maybe isn't so savvy with that, all the way down to showing how things can fluctuate, and being able to use that as, oh, yep. And if we do these things and we create the right setting with the right care, they can shine and they can stay at this particular gem state and be able to do these particular things. But if we continue to let these stressors happen and we don't have that right setting and we're not giving that right care, this is why we see this fluctuation going on. This is why we're getting this, and pointing that out. And that could be such a huge aha moment for so many folks. It's like, it just brings it all together. And so it's just so amazing. Such a wonderful job. And Beth, remind me now, this was a team that put this together that helped us. Part of why it's free. Can you remind us who was that helped us with that?
Yes, I was just thinking we would be so remiss not to mention the Hammond brothers. So these two young men, they found Teepa because they chose to alter their lives when their mom was diagnosed with early onset dementia, and they both decided to move home to support their family so that she could live life in spite of having this quite early diagnosis. And it's been amazing to see the way that their view of using the GEMS has helped them better support their moms, support each other. And they, you know, being in the tech world that they were, I think they were, what was it, MIT or something? So they decided app, and I thought it was just so amazing. Sorry about the phone.
Super smart brothers. And they even did some VR work too, I believe, right? They created some VR programs we got a chance to try out. And so we are so thankful for them and all of their hard work and making this available like they have for us. It's been so awesome. And Beth, we thank you so much for coming on again and sharing this with us, especially in this situation, showing us the actual app and running through it. And Helen and Kailee, thank you so much for playing along and answering some of those questions and helping guide us through like what you guys do. That's so awesome. We really appreciate everything you guys are doing.
No doubt, man. I loved that real life application of how do you use this with a family? Really, how do you use this in the moment with a family? So thank you, Beth and Helen and Kailee, for that demonstration. I really appreciate it. So we've talked about the app, but this was like next level. So thank you. Speaking of next level, Matthew, we have some more events that are coming up soon for those people who are interested in getting certified. And I'm so delighted to say that next week we have a coach certification coming up. What else is going on? What else is on the table?
Well, as we talk about all the time with you guys about going on to the Teepa Snow site, and I know we show you slides and we give you examples that way, but I love kind of talking about that real world application with that app. Same thing with this. So here's that website we keep talking about, that teepasnow.com. And you can go to that calendar section and you can click on it. And this gives you the PAC events that are going on. This helps you to find what you're looking for, whether it's a certification or a free event that Teepa's putting on, or the Ask Teepa Anythings. You can come on here, you can locate those different events, and you can sign up for them. You can see the details. As you can tell, we've got that coaching certification that Rebecca's talking about here. And so you can click on the details and you can find a way to sign in and be able to purchase the certification. And I believe they're giving a discount up until the end of January. I think it's $1,700 now for that certification until the end of January. So jump on that so you can get that discount until then for other certifications or just the certifications coming up. But you can come on here, you can find what you're looking for. And of course, there's always folks on in the PAC team that are more than willing to come on and help you navigate, because there are a lot of options. PAC offers so much. The Brain Connection Cafe, the champion courses, when you're talking about building that skill, that hand under hand, those hand under hand techniques, and looking at the gem states. We've got the one coming up on Friday working on modifying those hand under hand techniques, working with different gem states. So just so many awesome resources, so many good ways to get connected, see what's going on in the PAC world, and to be able to sign up for them. So get on there, join us, sign up. We would love to have you. We want to hear more of these stories. We want to hear more of these successes like we're hearing with Helen and Kailee and their folks there in their organization. So please come join us.
Absolutely. So check out those events. And Helen and Kailee, I have a feeling you'll probably hear from people who want to pick your brains about the great work you're doing. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being superstars. Okay, I'm just trying too hard to pull SUP in now at this point. But you guys are awesome. Thank you for being here. Join us next week for another episode of Straight Up Positive, everyone.
Thanks for having